The morning sun beat down on the Tello 7 spaceport as Li Taiyang wiped sweat from his forehead. He had been checking the loading platforms for 3 hours now, making sure every bolt was tight and every wire was properly connected. It was boring work, but someone had to do it. The spaceport handled ships from a dozen different alien species, and one mistake could cause a disaster. Taiyang was 28 years old and had been working as an engineer on this frontier colony for 2 years. He missed Earth sometimes, missed his family and the food his mother used to make, but the pay was good here, and he liked the challenge of working with alien technology. Most days were quiet and routine, just the way he preferred them. He moved to the next platform, running his scanner over the metal surface. The device beeped steadily, showing normal readings. Everything looked fine until he reached the underside of the platform near the fuel lines. There, attached to the main support beam, was a small black box that definitely should not be there. Taiyang's heart started beating faster. He had seen enough security briefings to recognize what this was. A bomb, a very sophisticated one, judging by the blinking red light on its surface. His hand shook as he reached for his communicator to call security. Before he could press the button, he heard a sound that made his blood run cold. Laughter. Child's laughter. He turned his head and saw a small figure wandering onto the platform about 30 meters away. It was a Velran child, her pale blue skin shimmering in the sunlight. She wore elegant robes that marked her as someone important, probably part of the diplomatic delegation that had arrived yesterday. The girl was looking at something on the ground, completely unaware of the danger. Taiyang looked back at the bomb. The red light was blinking faster now. Much faster. He did the math in his head. The blast radius would be huge. If he ran away and called for help, the bomb would detonate before anyone could reach the girl. If he tried to disarm it, he might trigger it early and kill them both. There was only one option that gave the child a chance of survival. Taiyang dropped his scanner and ran. His boots pounded against the metal platform as he sprinted toward the girl. She looked up at him with large, curious eyes that seemed to glow with an inner light. She said something in her own language, a musical sound that he could not understand. He did not slow down. When he reached her, he grabbed her small body and dove behind a large cargo container just as the world exploded behind them. The blast was enormous. The shockwave hit Taiyang's back like a hammer, and he felt sharp pieces of metal tear through his clothing and into his flesh. Pain exploded across his shoulders, his spine, his legs. He kept his arms wrapped around the girl, using his body as a shield between her and the deadly shrapnel flying through the air. Something hot and sharp stabbed into his lower back. Another piece hit his shoulder. He could feel blood soaking through his shirt, warm and wet. The noise was deafening, a roar that seemed to go on forever. Smoke filled the air, making it hard to breathe. Then suddenly it was over. The roaring stopped, replaced by an eerie silence broken only by the crackle of flames and the groan of twisted metal. Taiyang's arms felt weak. He tried to hold on to the girl, but his strength was fading fast. He managed to look down at her. She seemed unhurt, just terrified. Her eyes were wide with shock and she was trembling. Good. That meant she was alive. That meant his decision had been the right one. The girl said something else in her language. Her voice sounded far away now, like she was calling to him from the end of a long tunnel. Taiyang tried to respond, tried to tell her that everything would be okay, but his mouth would not form the words. His vision started to blur. He could see shapes moving toward them, hear voices shouting. The girl was touching his face now, her small blue hands gentle against his cheek. She was crying, tears running down her face like liquid crystal. Taiyang wanted to tell her not to cry. He wanted to say that he was just doing what anyone would do. But darkness was creeping in at the edges of his vision and his body felt so heavy. The last thing he remembered was the girl's hand gripping his, holding on tight as if she could keep him from slipping away. Then the darkness took him and he knew nothing more. When the security forces arrived 30 seconds later, they found the young princess covered in human blood, but without a single scratch on her body. The human engineer was barely alive, his back torn open by dozens of pieces of shrapnel. The royal guards immediately called for the best medical team, but everyone who saw Taiyang's injuries thought the same thing. He would not survive. The princess refused to leave his side. Even as the medics worked frantically to stabilize him, even as her own guards tried to pull her away to safety, she held onto his hand and spoke to him in Velran, telling him to stay alive, begging him not to die. The blast had destroyed half the loading platform and killed 3 dock workers who had been nearby. Investigators found the remains of the bomb and quickly determined it was designed to maximize casualties. Whoever planted it had wanted to kill as many people as possible, especially the Velryn diplomatic delegation. News of the attack spread quickly. Within hours, every major news network in the sector was reporting the story. A human engineer had sacrificed himself to save an alien child. The images were broadcast everywhere. The destroyed platform, the blood-soaked cargo container, and most striking of all, the small blue princess refusing to let go of the unconscious human's hand. On the Velryn flagship orbiting above Telos 7, King Altheron received the news while meeting with his advisors. His daughter Lyra, his precious only child, had nearly been killed. Only the quick action of a human, a species the Velryn barely trusted, had saved her life. The king immediately ordered his daughter brought to the flagship along with the injured human. He commanded his personal physicians to use every resource available to keep the human alive. The Velryn had ancient laws about life debts, sacred traditions that went back thousands of years. This human had earned something that few in the galaxy ever received, the eternal gratitude of the Velryn royal family. As Taeyang's broken body was carefully loaded onto a medical shuttle, he remained unconscious, unaware that his life was about to change in ways he could never have imagined. He did not know that he had saved a princess. He did not know about the political storm his actions had created. He did not know that the simple choice he made in those 3 seconds would reshape the relationship between two species. All he had known in that moment of decision was that a child was in danger. And for Li Taiyang, that was the only thing that mattered. Everything else, all the consequences and complications, would have to wait until he opened his eyes again. If he ever opened them again. Taiyang's first thought when consciousness returned was that he was dead. Surely death would feel like this, floating in darkness with no pain, no sensation at all. But then sounds began to filter through the fog in his mind. Soft beeping, the hum of machinery, voices speaking in a language that sounded like wind chimes and flowing water. His eyelids felt heavy, like they were made of lead. It took 3 tries before he managed to open them. The light that greeted him was soft and blue, not harsh like the fluorescent lights in human medical facilities. The ceiling above him seemed to shimmer and move, covered in patterns that shifted like aurora lights. Taiyang tried to sit up. Bad idea. His body screamed in protest, though the pain was distant and muted, as if he was feeling it through thick padding. He managed to turn his head to the side instead. That was when he saw them. 5 figures standing around his bed, all wearing ornate armor that seemed to be made of crystal and metal fused together. Their faces were hidden behind helmets, but he could see the faint glow of eyes watching him through the visors. They stood perfectly still like statues, their hands resting on weapons he did not recognize. "Where am I?" Taeyang's voice came out as a rough whisper. His throat felt like sandpaper. One of the guards moved, a slight tilt of the head. The figure reached up and removed the helmet, revealing a face that was distinctly not human. Pale blue skin, high cheekbones, and those glowing eyes that seemed to look right through him. The guard was female, he thought, though it was hard to be sure with aliens. "You are aboard the Starlight Sovereign," she said in perfect English, though her voice had a strange musical quality to it. "The royal flagship of the Velryn Empire. I am Commander Kira Velnus, head of royal security." Taeyang's mind struggled to process this information. Royal flagship, Empire? The last thing he remembered was the explosion. The girl in his arms. The pain. "The child," he said urgently, trying to sit up again. "The blue girl, is she okay?" Commander Kira's expression did not change, but something flickered in her eyes. "Princess Lyra is unharmed. Thanks to you." She paused, studying him with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. "You saved the daughter of King Altheron. This is not a small thing, human." The way she said human made it sound like an insult. Taeyang decided to ignore it. "How long have I been unconscious?" 3 days. Your injuries were severe. By human medical standards, you should have died within minutes. Our physicians used Velryn biotechnology to repair your damaged organs and extract the shrapnel. There were 47 pieces of metal embedded in your body." Taeyang looked down at himself for the first time. He was covered in some kind of thin, silvery material that clung to his skin like a second layer. Through it, he could see faint lines of blue light running across his chest and arms, like veins filled with glowing liquid. "What did you do to me?" he asked, unable to keep the alarm out of his voice. "We saved your life. another voice said from the doorway. An older Velrin male entered the room, wearing robes that marked him as someone important. His skin was a deeper blue than the commander's, and his eyes held a wisdom that came from many years of living. I am Master Physician Torin. The biotechnology you see is accelerating your body's natural healing processes. In another 2 days, you will be fully recovered. Taeyang wanted to feel grateful, but something about this situation felt wrong. The guards were not just watching him. They were guarding him. Am I a prisoner? Commander Kira's jaw tightened. You are under royal protection. There is a difference. It does not feel different, Taeyang muttered. The physician moved closer, pulling out a small device and waving it over Taeyang's body. Numbers and symbols appeared in the air above it, none of which Taeyang could read. Your vital signs are stable, heart rate elevated, but that is to be expected given the circumstances. You should rest now. I do not want to rest, Taeyang said, his frustration growing. I want answers. Why am I here? Why the guards? What is going on? Commander Kira and the physician exchanged glances. Finally, the commander spoke. What you did 3 days ago has created a situation. Princess Lyra is the only child of King Altheron. She is the heir to the Velrin throne. You saved her life at great personal risk. According to our ancient laws, this creates a life debt. Okay, Taeyang said slowly. So what does that mean? It means, Kira continued, her tone cold, that you have been declared a protector of the blood. It is an ancient title, one that has not been granted to an outsider in over 1,000 years. You are now bound to the royal family until the debt is formally acknowledged and the proper ceremonies are completed. The implications of her words sank in slowly. Bound, you mean I cannot leave? Not without the king's permission, no. Taeyang felt anger rising in his chest. I did not ask for this. I just did what anyone would do. I saw a child in danger and I helped. That is all? Kira's eyes flashed. Anyone would do? No human. Most beings would have run. Most would have chosen their own survival over a stranger's life. Especially a stranger from another species. What you did was either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. We have not yet decided which. Commander, the physician said quietly, a warning in his voice. Kira ignored him. There are many in the royal court who believe your actions were not heroic at all. They think the bombing was planned by humans and you were part of it. They believe you rescued the princess to cover your involvement, to gain access to the royal family. Taeyang stared at her in disbelief. That is insane. Why would I nearly die to cover my involvement in a plot? That makes no sense. Humans make no sense, Kira shot back. Your species is violent, unpredictable, and driven by emotions we cannot understand. You have been at war with yourselves for your entire history. Why should we trust anything you do? The physician stepped between them. Commander, that is enough. He is still recovering. Kira looked like she wanted to say more, but she closed her mouth and stepped back. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. Taeyang closed his eyes, suddenly exhausted. This was not how he imagined waking up would be. He had hoped for a quiet hospital room, maybe a thank you from the child's parents, and then back to his normal life. Instead, he was trapped on an alien spaceship, accused of terrorism and bound by laws he did not understand. I want to see her, he said quietly. What? Kira asked. The princess, Lyra. I want to see that she is really okay. He opened his eyes and looked directly at the commander. You can think whatever you want about me. You can believe I am a terrorist or a hero or whatever, but I need to see that the child is safe. That is all I care about. Something shifted in Kira's expression. The hardness softened just a fraction. That is not possible. The princess is in isolation while we investigate the attack. No one is allowed to see her. Then I am a prisoner, Taeyang said flatly. Before Kira could respond, a new voice came from the doorway. Young, high-pitched, and speaking in that musical Velrin language. Everyone in the room immediately bowed. Taeyang turned his head and saw the girl from the explosion. Princess Lyra. She was wearing clean robes now, her blue skin gleaming in the soft light. She looked small and fragile, but her eyes were fierce as she looked at the guards blocking her path. She spoke again, more forcefully this time. Commander Kira responded in the same language, her tone respectful but firm. The princess argued back, her voice rising. What is she saying? Taeyang asked. The physician smiled slightly.
She is saying that she does not care about protocol or security concerns.
She came to see the human who saved her life, and she will not leave until she does. Princess Lyra's eyes found Taeyang's across the room. Her fierce expression melted into something softer. She said something in her language, then tried in broken English. Wait, good, I worried. Taeyang found himself smiling despite everything. I am okay, Princess. Are you hurt at all? She shook her head quickly. No hurt, you saved me. You saved Lyra. She touched her chest. I am Lyra. I am Taeyang. She tried to repeat his name, but it came out wrong. The syllables tangled in her alien tongue. She frowned, frustrated, then tried again. Taeyang. Close enough, he said, his smile growing wider. Commander Kira watched this exchange with an unreadable expression. When the princess finally left, reluctantly ushered away by her personal guards, the commander stayed behind. She studied Taeyang for a long moment. The princess has never disobeyed protocol before, she said quietly. She insisted on staying by your side during the entire journey here. She would not let go of your hand, even when her father commanded it. Whatever you did in those few seconds, human, it has changed something in her, changed something in all of us. She turned to leave, then paused at the door. For what it is worth, I hope you are what you appear to be. We have few enough heroes in this galaxy. It would be a shame if you were just another deceiver. Then she was gone, leaving Taeyang alone with his thoughts, his strange glowing wounds, and the growing realization that his simple life as an engineer was over forever. The journey to Velrax's Prime took 6 days. Taeyang spent most of that time in his quarters, which were far more luxurious than anything he had ever experienced. The room was large, with walls that seemed to shift colors based on his mood. When he felt anxious, they turned deep blue. When he managed to relax, they became soft green. It was unsettling at first, but he eventually got used to it. The physician visited him twice daily, monitoring his recovery. The biotechnology had done its work well. By the 3rd day, Taeyang could walk without pain. By the 5th day, he felt better than he had in years. Whatever the Velrin had done to heal him had also somehow improved his overall health. He mentioned this to Master Torin, who simply smiled and said, "A side effect of our medicine. Consider it a gift." Princess Lyra visited him every day, always accompanied by guards, always for exactly 30 minutes. Commander Kira had made it clear that this was against protocol, but the princess had insisted, and apparently even the head of security could not refuse a royal command. The visits were awkward at first. Lyra's English was limited, and Taeyang knew no Velrin at all. They communicated mostly through gestures and simple words, but slowly they found a way to talk. Lyra was curious about everything human. She asked about Earth, about his family, about human food and music and art. Taeyang did his best to explain, often drawing pictures on the datapad she brought him. In return, she taught him about Velrin culture. She told him about the honor system that governed their society, where a life debt was the most sacred bond that could exist between two people. She explained that by saving her, Taeyang had become part of her family in a way that was difficult to translate into human concepts. "You are like brother now," she said one day, struggling with the English words. "But more. Brother of blood, brother of soul. You give your life for me, so my life is yours too." Taeyang found this concept deeply uncomfortable. He had not saved her to gain anything. He had just reacted. "I do not want to own anyone's life," he told her. "I just wanted you to be safe." Lyra looked at him with those glowing eyes, and he saw something ancient in them, something that reminded him she was not human, no matter how young she appeared. "That is why you own it," she said simply. "Because you do not want to." On the 6th day, they arrived at Velrax's Prime. Taeyang was allowed to watch the approach from his window, and what he saw took his breath away. The planet was beautiful, covered in crystalline structures that caught the sunlight and scattered it into rainbow patterns. Cities sprawled across the surface, but they did not look like human cities. They looked like they had grown naturally, like flowers or trees, organic and flowing. Commander Kira came to his quarters that evening. "Tomorrow you will face the Council of Elders," she said without preamble. "They will determine if you are truly worthy of the title you have been given, or if you are a threat to the royal family." "What happens if they decide I am a threat?" Taeyang asked, though he was not sure he wanted to know the answer. "Then you will be executed as an enemy of the Empire." She said it matter-of-factly, as if discussing the weather. Our laws are clear. No one who threatens the royal bloodline can be allowed to live. Taeyang felt his stomach drop. I saved her life. How can I be a threat? That is what you must prove tomorrow. The council believes the bombing was orchestrated by humans who want to restart the war between our species. They believe you may have been planted there, waiting for an opportunity to gain the royal family's trust. By nearly dying, Taeyang could not keep the frustration out of his voice. That seems like a terrible plan. Humans have done worse for less reason. Kira studied him for a moment. For what it is worth, I no longer believe you are part of a plot. I have watched you with the princess. No actor is that skilled. But my opinion does not matter. Only the council's judgment matters now. She turned to leave, then stopped. One more thing. The council will use a truth reader during your testimony. It is a Velrun with strong telepathic abilities who can sense lies and deception. Most species find the process uncomfortable. Humans find it excruciating. Your minds are too loud, too chaotic. The truth reader will have to dig deep to find the clarity needed to judge you. Will it hurt? Taeyang asked. Yes, Kira said simply, and left. That night, Taeyang could not sleep. He lay in bed, staring at the shifting ceiling, thinking about his family back on Earth. They must have heard about the explosion by now. Did they know he was alive? Did they know where he was? He had sent messages, but he had no idea if they had been delivered. He thought about his old life, the simple routine of checking equipment and fixing broken machinery. It seemed like a lifetime ago, though it had only been days. Everything had changed so quickly. 1 moment of choice, 3 seconds of decision, and now his entire future hung in the balance. The next morning, guards came to escort him to the council chamber. They gave him formal robes to wear, deep blue with silver threading that marked him as a guest of the royal family. The robes felt strange on his body, too light and too heavy at the same time. The walk through the palace was long. Taeyang saw dozens of Velrun, all of whom stopped to stare at him. Some looked curious, others looked hostile. A few looked afraid. He realized that he was probably one of the first humans most of them had ever seen in person. The council chamber was enormous, a circular room with a domed ceiling that showed the stars above. 12 Velrun sat in elevated seats arranged in a semicircle, all of them ancient. Their blue skin faded almost to white with age. In the center of the room was a raised platform where Taeyang was directed to stand. King Altheron sat in the highest seat. He looked different from his daughter, larger and more imposing with features that had been hardened by years of rule. His eyes were sharp as they examined Taeyang. Li Taeyang of Earth, the king's voice boomed through the chamber. You stand before the council of elders to be judged. You have been granted the title of Protector of the Blood. But this title comes with great responsibility and great scrutiny. We must know with certainty that you are worthy of the trust we place in you. Taeyang bowed as Lyra had taught him. I understand, Your Majesty. Then let the examination begin. The king gestured and another Velrun stepped forward. This one was thin and frail-looking, with eyes that glowed brighter than any Taeyang had seen before. The truth reader. The ancient Velrun approached Taeyang slowly, studying him like a scientist might study an interesting specimen. When the Velrun reached out to touch Taeyang's forehead, Taeyang forced himself to stand still, even though every instinct screamed at him to pull away. The moment of contact was like being struck by lightning. Taeyang gasped as he felt something alien invade his mind, pushing through his thoughts and memories like fingers rifling through papers. It did not hurt physically, but the sensation was deeply wrong, deeply invasive. He could feel the truth reader moving through his past, seeing moments from his childhood, his family, his decision to come to Telos 7. Then the truth reader reached the moment of the explosion. Taeyang felt himself reliving it, seeing the bomb, seeing the princess making the decision to run. The truth reader paused there, examining that moment from every angle, looking for any hint of deception or hidden motive. What the truth reader found was simplicity. There had been no calculation in Taeyang's mind, no thought of reward or recognition. There had only been a child in danger, and the overwhelming need to protect her. The decision had been made before conscious thought even engaged. It was pure instinct, pure humanity at its most basic level. The truth reader withdrew suddenly and Taeyang nearly collapsed. Strong hands caught him. Commander Kira had moved to his side without him noticing. She held him upright as he gasped for air, his mind reeling from the violation. The truth reader turned to face the council. When the ancient Velrin spoke, the voice was weak but clear. I have seen his truth. This human acted without thought of gain or glory. He acted from instinct, from a nature that values innocent life above his own survival. There is no deception in him. He is what he appears to be. The truth reader paused, then added something that made every Velrin in the room go still. More than that, he is something we have never encountered before. His species' capacity for self-sacrifice exceeds anything in our records. This human represents the best of what his kind can be. The council chamber erupted in whispered conversations. King Altheron raised his hand for silence. The truth reader has spoken. Li Taiyang of Earth, you are hereby declared worthy of the title Protector of the Blood. You are granted the rank of Blade of House Valaris, a position that has been vacant for 300 years. From this day forward, you are bound to this family and this throne. You will serve and protect the royal bloodline with your life, as you have already proven willing to do. The king stood, and everyone in the chamber bowed. However, you must understand the weight of what you have accepted. As Blade of House Valaris, you cannot leave without royal permission. You cannot take actions that might endanger the family. You are in essence no longer entirely your own person. Your life belongs to us now as my daughter's life belongs to you. This is the nature of the bond you have created. Taiyang felt the words settle over him like chains.
He had saved one life and lost his own freedom in the process.
He should have been angry. He should have been resentful. But when he looked up and saw Princess Lyra standing beside her father's throne, smiling at him with tears of joy in her eyes, he found he could not regret his choice. I understand, Your Majesty, he said quietly. I accept the responsibility. The king nodded. Then rise, Blade Taiyang. Rise and take your place in our house. As Taiyang stood, he saw Commander Kira watching him with an expression he could not quite read. Later, she would tell him it was respect. In that moment, he just felt tired, overwhelmed, and very far from home. But he had made his choice. Now he would live with the consequences, whatever they might be. 3 months had passed since the trial, and Taiyang's life had become something he never could have imagined. He woke each morning in the royal palace, trained for 4 hours with Velrin combat instructors, studied alien languages and customs for 2 more hours, then spent the rest of his day shadowing Princess Lyra as her unofficial bodyguard. The princess had grown comfortable around him, treating him like the older brother she had never had. She dragged him to diplomatic meetings where he understood nothing, to cultural events where he felt completely out of place, and to quiet gardens where they could simply talk without the weight of protocol crushing down on them. Taiyang had learned a lot about Velrin combat in those 3 months. Their fighting style was beautiful and deadly, focused on speed and precision rather than brute force. At first, his human body could not keep up with the movements, but his instructors were patient and gradually he began to adapt. He would never be as fast as a Velrin, but he learned to use his human strengths, endurance, unpredictability, and a stubborn refusal to quit. Commander Kira had become something close to a friend, though she would never admit it. She still watched him with suspicious eyes sometimes, but now there was also respect in her gaze. She had started including him in security briefings, teaching him how to spot threats and assess dangers. You think like prey, she told him once. Prey that fights back. It is useful. One evening, Taiyang was walking through the palace corridors when he heard shouting. He ran toward the sound and found Commander Kira in a security office, surrounded by floating holograms and looking more agitated than he had ever seen her. What is wrong? He asked. She turned to him, her face pale. We have intelligence about another attack. The same group that planted the bomb on Telos 7 is planning something bigger. They are targeting the Peace Summit next month. Taiyang felt his blood run cold. The Peace Summit was supposed to be a historic event, the signing of a formal alliance treaty between humanity and the Velrin Empire. Leaders from both species would be there, including King Altheron and Princess Lyra. What are they planning? He asked. We do not know the details yet. But our sources say they have agents inside both security forces, human and Velrin, working together to sabotage the peace. They want to restart the war between our species. Why? Taiyang moved closer to examine the holograms. He could not read most of the text, but he recognized maps and floor plans. Who benefits from a war? Kira pulled up another image. These people. It showed a list of names and faces, both human and Velrin. Arms dealers, war profiteers, Political extremists who believe their species should be dominant. Peace is bad for their business. War keeps them rich and powerful. Taeyang studied the faces. Some looked like military officers. Others wore expensive clothes that marked them as wealthy. They would kill innocent people just to protect their profits? They already have, Kira reminded him grimly. The bombing that nearly killed the princess was their work. They do not care about honor or morality. They only care about maintaining the status quo. For the next 2 weeks, Taeyang watched as security preparations for the summit intensified. More guards were assigned. New scanning equipment was installed. Background checks were run and rerun on everyone who would attend, but Kira remained worried. If they have people inside our security forces, all these precautions might be useless, she confided in Taeyang one night. They will know our plans. They will know our weaknesses. Princess Lyra had noticed the tension. She was older now than when they had first met, more mature and frighteningly perceptive. She cornered Taeyang in the garden one afternoon. Something is wrong, she said in English that had improved dramatically over the months. You and Commander Kira are worried. Tell me the truth. Taeyang hesitated. She was still young, still in need of protection. But she was also the future queen of her people. She deserved to know. There might be trouble at the summit, he said carefully. We are taking precautions. Her eyes narrowed. You think they will try again? The people who planted the bomb? Yes. Then I will not attend. Father can go alone. I will stay here where it is safe. Taeyang shook his head. It does not work that way. The summit is about the future. You are the future. The treaty is not just about our generation, it is about yours. You need to be there. Even if it is dangerous. Especially because it is dangerous. Someone has to stand up and say that peace is worth the risk. Otherwise, the bad people win. Lyra was quiet for a long moment, then she smiled. You sound like Father. He says similar things. She looked up at the alien sky at the 2 moons hanging above them. I have been learning about humans. About Earth. Your species has so much violence in its history, wars that lasted decades, weapons that could destroy entire cities. But you also have incredible capacity for change, for growth. You went from fighting each other to exploring the stars in just a few hundred years. We are not perfect, Taeyang said. We make mistakes. We hurt each other, but we also try to do better. Most of us anyway. That is what I admire, Lyra said. The trying. Velran society is old and stable. We rarely change. Sometimes I think we are too set in our ways. But humans keep pushing forward, keep trying new things even when it is dangerous. Like you, running toward an explosion instead of away from it. That night, Taeyang could not sleep. He kept thinking about the summit, about the faceless enemies who wanted to destroy the peace. An idea had been forming in his mind, dangerous and probably stupid. But he could not shake it. The next morning, he went to Commander Kira with his proposal. Use me as bait, he said. She looked at him like he had lost his mind. Absolutely not. Think about it. I am famous now. The human who saved the princess. I am a symbol of cooperation between our species. The radicals hate me because I represent everything they are fighting against. If I am visibly at the summit, they will want to kill me. They will want to prove that I am not special, that humans cannot be trusted. Which is exactly why this is a terrible idea, Kira said flatly. But if we know they are coming for me, we can be ready. We can set a trap. I can draw them out. Kira paced back and forth, her agitation clear. You are not trained for this. You are barely competent at basic combat. You are a bodyguard, not a soldier. Then train me, Taeyang said. We have 2 weeks. Give me everything you have got. Combat training, tactics, whatever I need. And give me the best equipment your technology can provide. Why? Kira stopped pacing and stared at him. Why would you do this? You could stay safe in the palace. No one expects you to be a hero twice. Because it is not about being a hero, Taeyang said quietly. It is about doing what is right. These people tried to kill Lyra once. They will try again if we do not stop them. I cannot just stand by and let that happen. Kira was silent for a long time. Finally, she sighed. If I agree to this insanity, and that is a very big if, you would need more than training. You would need enhancements, cybernetic implants that would boost your reaction time and physical capabilities. It is a painful process and not without risks. What kind of risks? Rejection. Neural damage. Death if something goes wrong during the procedure. She looked at him seriously. You could end up paralyzed or brain damaged. Is this really worth that risk? Taeyang thought of Lyra's smile, of the hope in her eyes when she talked about the future. He thought of all the people who would attend the summit, humans and Velrin alike who just wanted peace. He thought of his own family back on Earth and the kind of galaxy he wanted them to live in. Yes, he said. It is worth it. Kira studied him for another moment, then nodded slowly. I must be insane for agreeing to this, but I will present your plan to the king. If he approves, we proceed. If not, you stay safe in the palace and we find another way. The meeting with King Altheron was tense. The king listened to the plan with a stony expression, occasionally interrupting with sharp questions. Princess Lyra was also present against protocol, and she argued passionately for Taeyang's plan. He is right, father, she said. The radicals will target him. Better to use that predictability against them than to hide and hope they do not succeed. The king looked at Taeyang. You understand you might die? I understand, your majesty. You understand that even if you survive, the enhancements will change you. You will no longer be entirely human. Taeyang had not thought about that. The idea was unsettling, but he nodded. I understand. The king was quiet for a long time. Finally, he spoke. 3 months ago, you saved my daughter without hesitation. You did not think about the consequences or the cost. You simply acted because it was right. Now you want to put yourself in danger again for the same reason. He shook his head slowly. Humans are either the bravest species in the galaxy or the most foolish. Perhaps both. Is that a yes, your majesty? Commander Kira asked. It is a yes. Proceed with the enhancements. Prepare him as best you can. And Commander? The king's voice grew hard. If this plan fails, if my daughter is harmed, I will hold you personally responsible. Understood, your majesty. The next 2 weeks were brutal. The cybernetic procedure took 3 days and left Taeyang feeling like his body was not entirely his own anymore. He could feel the implants in his spine and his nervous system. Tiny machines that enhanced his reflexes and strength. When he moved now, he moved faster. When he reacted, his body responded with precision that seemed impossible. But the enhancements also came with downsides. He had headaches as his brain adapted to the new input. His senses were sharper, which meant everything was louder, brighter, more intense. He had to learn to filter out the excess information or be overwhelmed by it. The training was even more intense than the procedure. Commander Kira worked him 12 hours a day, teaching him advanced combat techniques, tactical thinking, and how to use the new abilities his enhancements provided. She was merciless, pushing him to his limits and then beyond them. Pain is just information, she would say when he complained. Learn to filter it like everything else. On the last day before they departed for the summit, Taeyang stood in front of a mirror and barely recognized himself. He looked harder somehow, leaner and more dangerous. His eyes had a faint glow now, a side effect of the neural implants. He looked less like an engineer and more like what he had become, a weapon aimed at the enemies of peace. Princess Lyra found him there. Are you afraid? She asked. Terrified, he admitted. Good, she said. Fear means you are being smart. Father says only fools have no fear. She took his hand. But fear should not stop us from doing what is right. You taught me that. I did. When you ran toward the bomb instead of away from it. You were afraid then too. I could see it in your eyes. But you ran anyway. Taeyang squeezed her hand gently. Stay close to Commander Kira during the summit. Do not take any unnecessary risks. Promise me. Only if you promise the same. He laughed despite himself. I cannot promise that. The whole plan is an unnecessary risk. Then I cannot promise either, she said with a small smile. We are family now, remember? We face the danger together. As Taeyang boarded the ship that would take them to the summit, he looked back at the palace one last time. Part of him wondered if he would ever see it again. But he pushed that thought aside. There was work to do and a peace to protect. The hunters were waiting. Soon they would become the hunted. The Concordia station hung in neutral space between human and Velrin territories, a massive structure built specifically for this historic moment. As Taeyang walked through its corridors, he could feel eyes on him from every direction. Humans stared at the man who had become a symbol of cooperation. Velrin studied him with curiosity and suspicion. Everyone knew who he was. Everyone knew what he represented. The summit would last 3 days. Today was the second day, and tonight would be the signing ceremony where the alliance treaty would be made official. Security was everywhere, Armed guards from both species patrolled the halls. Scanners checked every person entering the main chamber. Commander Kira had positioned her best agents at every critical point. But Taeyang could feel it in his bones. Something was wrong. The enhanced senses from his cybernetic implants picked up tension in the air that others might miss. People were too nervous. Guards were too alert. It felt like everyone was waiting for something terrible to happen. He stood near Princess Lyra in the diplomatic gallery, watching as human and Velran leaders gave speeches about peace and cooperation. The words were beautiful, but they felt hollow. Taeyang's new reflexes kept him scanning the crowd, looking for threats, watching for anything unusual. Commander Kira's voice crackled in the communication device implanted behind his ear. West Gallery, third row. Human male keeps checking something in his pocket. Possible weapon. Taeyang's eyes found the target immediately. The man was sweating despite the cool temperature. His hand kept moving to his jacket pocket, then pulling away like he was building up courage for something. I see him, Taeyang whispered, moving to intercept. He excused himself from Lyra's side and began making his way through the crowd. His enhanced speed made it easy to move between people without drawing attention. When he reached the suspicious man, he positioned himself directly behind him. Security, Taeyang said quietly in English. Keep your hands where I can see them. The man spun around, his face going pale. For a moment, Taeyang thought he would run or fight. Instead, the man's shoulders slumped in relief. He slowly pulled his hand from his pocket, revealing not a weapon but a small recording device. I am just a journalist, the man said quickly. I was trying to record the speeches for my article. I know it is against the rules, but I thought, you thought wrong. Taeyang cut him off. He signaled for security guards who escorted the protesting journalist away. False alarm, but his nerves were wound so tight that even small things felt like threats. The day continued without major incident. More speeches, more diplomatic pleasantries, more tension building beneath the surface like pressure in a sealed container. When evening came, Taeyang returned to his quarters to change into formal attire for the signing ceremony. He was adjusting his collar when Commander Kira entered without knocking, her face grim. We have a problem, she said. A big one. What happened? Our intelligence was wrong. The radicals have more people inside than we thought. We just discovered that one of the guards assigned to the signing platform is on their payroll. We arrested him, but he claims he was just gathering information. He says the real attack will not come from inside the security forces. Then where? Taeyang asked. He would not say. But he did mention that tonight's ceremony will be remembered forever. Those were his exact words. Taeyang felt ice in his stomach. We should cancel the ceremony. Postpone until we know more. The king will not agree. Neither will the human leaders. They believe canceling would show weakness, would let the radicals win. The ceremony will proceed as planned. Kira moved to the window, looking out at the stars. I have tripled security. I have scanners on every entrance. I have snipers positioned throughout the chamber. But if they have planned something we cannot anticipate, she did not finish the sentence. She did not need to. Then we deal with it when it happens, Taeyang said, trying to sound more confident than he felt. That is what we trained for. The signing ceremony began at sunset, Concordia Station's artificial time. The main chamber was enormous, with a platform in the center where King Altheron and President Chen of Earth would sign the treaty. Hundreds of guests filled the seats, diplomats, military officers, journalists, and representatives from dozens of worlds watching this moment of history. Taeyang stood near the platform, close enough to reach Princess Lyra in seconds if needed. She wore ceremonial robes that shimmered with embedded lights, making her look like a living constellation. She caught his eye and gave him a small nod of encouragement. The speeches began. King Altheron spoke first, his voice carrying throughout the chamber. He talked about the past, about the misunderstandings and conflicts that had kept humans and Velran apart. He talked about the future, about what they could accomplish together. Then President Chen spoke, a woman in her 60s with silver hair and a voice that commanded respect. She echoed the king's sentiments, adding her own vision of cooperation and mutual growth. Taeyang barely heard the words. His enhanced senses were working overtime, scanning every face, every movement, every shadow. The cybernetic implants fed him information faster than his conscious mind could process, looking for patterns, for threats, for anything wrong. That was when he saw it. A group of staff members moving equipment near the east entrance. Nothing unusual about that, except one of them moved wrong. The gate was too stiff, too controlled, like someone trying hard to appear casual but failing. Taeyang's enhanced vision zoomed in on the person's face. Recognition hit him like a physical blow. That was not a staff member. That was one of the faces from Commander Kira's list of suspected radicals. A Velran officer who had supposedly been under surveillance elsewhere. Kira. He whispered urgently into his communicator. East entrance. Staff members with equipment. One of them is Commander Theron from your list. Impossible, Kira's voice came back. Theron is supposed to be in custody. We arrested him 3 hours ago. Then either he escaped or that was not him you arrested. I am moving to intercept. Taeyang started pushing through the crowd, trying not to cause a panic. On the platform, the signing was about to begin. King Altheron and President Chen were approaching the treaty document, ceremonial pens in hand. The fake staff members had reached the east wall. They were setting up what looked like camera equipment, but Taeyang's enhanced vision showed him the truth. Those were not cameras. They were weapons. High-powered energy projectors designed to look like recording devices. He ran. His enhanced speed carried him across the chamber in seconds, but it still felt too slow. The weapons were powering up a high-pitched whine that only his cybernetic ears could detect. Gun! Taeyang shouted at the top of his lungs. Everyone down. Chaos erupted. People screamed and dove for cover. Security guards rushed toward the threat. But the radicals were already moving, pulling away the fake equipment to reveal the weapons beneath. Theron pointed one directly at the signing platform where King Altheron and Princess Lyra stood frozen in shock. His finger moved to the trigger. Taeyang slammed into him a fraction of a second before he fired. The energy blast went wide, hitting the ceiling instead of the royal family. Taeyang and Theron tumbled to the ground, fighting for control of the weapon. Foolish human, Theron hissed. You cannot stop all of us. There are too many. He was right. More radicals were revealing themselves throughout the chamber. Guards who had been pretending loyalty were drawing weapons. Staff members were pulling out concealed explosives. This was not just an assassination attempt. This was a full-scale assault. Energy blasts filled the air. Security forces engaged the radicals in a firefight that lit up the chamber with deadly light. Taeyang saw Commander Kira rushing toward the platform, her weapon firing precisely at targets he could barely see. A human radical appeared behind her, weapon raised. Taeyang's enhanced reflexes made the decision for him. He grabbed Theron's weapon, aimed without consciously thinking, and fired. The blast hit the radical in the chest, dropping him before he could shoot Kira. She glanced back, saw what Taeyang had done, and nodded once before continuing her charge toward the royal family. Theron took advantage of Taeyang's distraction to land a brutal kick to his ribs. Even with enhancements, the pain was staggering. Taeyang rolled with the impact, coming up in a defensive stance. Theron was already moving, drawing a blade from his uniform. You are the reason this is all failing, Theron said, circling him. The human hero, the bridge between species. You have ruined everything we worked for. Decades of careful planning, all destroyed because you could not mind your own business. Good, Taeyang said, breathing hard. Your plan was to murder children and start a war. It deserved to fail. Theron lunged. The blade flashed in the emergency lighting. Taeyang's enhanced reflexes let him dodge, but barely. The knife scored a line across his shoulder, drawing blood. They fought in the chaos of the larger battle. Taeyang had 3 months of intensive training. Theron had a lifetime of military experience. The fight should have been impossible for Taeyang to win. But he had something Theron did not. The desperate need to protect the people he had come to care about. And he had the unpredictability that came from being human. When Theron expected a block, Taeyang attacked. When Theron anticipated a dodge, Taeyang held his ground. The fighting style Commander Kira had taught him was precise and elegant. The style Taeyang used now was chaotic and desperate, mixing Velran techniques with human street fighting and pure stubborn refusal to lose. Theron's blade came in again. This time, instead of dodging, Taeyang caught his wrist. The cybernetic enhancements in his hand gave him strength beyond normal human limits. He twisted hard, heard bones crack, and the knife clattered to the floor. Before Theron could recover, Taeyang drove his elbow into the Velran's face, then swept his legs out from under him. Theron hit the ground hard, and Taeyang kicked the knife away, then pointed Theron's own energy weapon at him. Stay down, Taeyang commanded. Around them, the battle was ending. Security forces were overwhelming the radicals. Bodies lay scattered across the chamber, both attackers and defenders. The cost had been high. Taeyang's eyes found the signing platform. Commander Kira stood there with a dozen guards, forming a protective circle around King Altheron, President Chen, and Princess Lyra. They were all alive. Shaken but alive, Princess Lyra saw him and started to run toward him. Commander Kira grabbed her arm, holding her back until the area was secured. But Lyra kept her eyes on Taeyang, tears running down her face. The medical teams arrived. Taeyang only then realized how badly he was hurt. The cut on his shoulder was deeper than he thought. His ribs were probably cracked from Theron's kick. His hands were shaking with adrenaline and exhaustion. But it was over. They had stopped the attack. The radicals had failed. 2 days later, after the wounded were treated and the dead were mourned, the signing ceremony resumed, this time with even more security, with even more determination. The radicals had tried to stop peace through violence. Instead, they had only made both species more committed to making the alliance work. King Altheron and President Chen signed the treaty while Taeyang watched from the crowd. His shoulder was bandaged, his ribs were taped, but he stood at attention in his formal uniform as the two leaders shook hands. The applause was deafening. Humans and Velrin cheering together, celebrating not just the treaty but the fact that they had survived an attempt to destroy it. The radicals had wanted to prove that the species could not work together. They had accomplished the opposite. After the ceremony, Princess Lyra found Taeyang in a quiet hallway. She looked at him with those glowing eyes, and he saw something in them he had never seen before. Not gratitude or admiration, but understanding. "You saved me again," she said softly. "It is becoming a habit," Taeyang replied with a tired smile. "When I grow up, I want to be like you," she said seriously. "Brave enough to run toward danger instead of away from it. Strong enough to stand up for what is right even when it is hard." "You are already like that," Taeyang told her. "You insisted on attending the ceremony even when you knew it was dangerous. That took more courage than anything I did." She hugged him suddenly, carefully avoiding his injured shoulder. "Thank you, brother," she whispered in Velrin. "Thank you for everything." 3 years passed in what felt like both forever and no time at all. The alliance between humans and Velrin grew stronger. Trade flourished. Cultural exchanges became common. Mixed colonies began to appear on frontier worlds where both species lived and worked side by side. Taeyang became the ambassador of human-Velrin relations, a position created specifically for him. He traveled constantly between worlds, solving problems, mediating disputes, and serving as a living reminder of what cooperation could accomplish. Princess Lyra grew up. She was not a child anymore, but a young woman preparing to take the throne someday. She spoke multiple languages fluently. She understood politics and diplomacy. But she never forgot the lesson she learned on that platform during the explosion. That sometimes the most important thing you can do is put someone else's safety before your own. Commander Kira became Taeyang's co-director of security, his friend and his partner in keeping the peace. They worked together so long that they could communicate with just a glance. Human and Velrin, former enemies, now inseparable allies. On a warm evening, Taeyang stood on a balcony overlooking a joint human-Velrin settlement on a world called New Harmony. Below him, children played in the streets. Some were human, some were Velrin, and a few were from other species that had joined the alliance. They played together without thought of difference, without the prejudices their parents' generation had carried. His communicator chimed, a message from his mother back on Earth. His family was coming to visit next month. They wanted to see his new life, meet his alien friends, experience this new era of peace he had helped create. Taeyang smiled. He had come so far from the engineer who just wanted a quiet life-fixing machinery. That man died in an explosion 3 years ago. The person who emerged from that fire was someone different, someone stronger, someone who had learned that one moment of courage could echo across civilizations. "Still think it was worth it?" Commander Kira's voice came from behind him. She stepped onto the balcony, 2 cups of some warm drink in her hands. She offered him one. Taeyang took the cup and looked back at the children playing below. He thought about the pain he had endured, the freedom he had lost, the life he had given up. He thought about what he had gained in return, a new family, a purpose, and the chance to make a real difference in the galaxy. "Every single second," he replied. They stood together in comfortable silence, human and alien, watching the sunset paint the sky in colors neither of their species had names for. A new world, a new era, a new hope. And it had all started with one simple choice: to run toward danger instead of away from it. To put someone else's life before his own. To be in that moment the best that humanity could be. The galaxy was not perfect. There were still problems, still conflicts, still people who wanted to tear down what others built. But for every person like that, there were now more people willing to stand up and say no, willing to risk themselves for the greater good, willing to bridge the gaps between species, between cultures, between worlds. The future was uncertain, as it always was. But for the first time in a long time, it was also bright with possibility. And Li Taiyang, the engineer who became a hero, the human who became a bridge, the man who had given up everything to save one child and ended up saving so much more, knew that whatever challenges came next, he would face them the same way he faced that explosion 3 years ago, with courage, with compassion, and with the absolute certainty that some things were worth any sacrifice. That was what it meant to be human. That was what it meant to be a hero.